Welcome to the March 9th, 2022 meeting of the City of Lake Forest Plan Commission. I am John Dixon, Chairman of the Plan Commission, and it is my great pleasure to see everybody here in person. So welcome. Thank you everybody for being here. At this time, I'd like to ask the commission members to introduce themselves. I'll start on my far left.
Steve LaMontagne.
Mark Pasquazi.
Jamie Moorhead.
Barrett Davey.
And from the City of Lake Forest, we have Ms. Kathy Ciernak here tonight. The first item of business here this evening is the recognition of past Plan Commission Chairman Rosemary Kerr, past members Michael Freeman and Susie Atherson. I'd like to say just a few words before we get started. I consider each one of these three past Plan Commissioners good friends. They were very supportive of me, not only during the process when I was on the Plan Commission, but certainly for some of them as I transitioned into my current role. So I am forever grateful to each one of them, and it is my distinct pleasure to be able to recognize them for their service. This is a long time in coming because of the restrictions that we've all obviously been under. We haven't been able to do this until this evening. So with that, I'd like to start first with Susan Atherson, and if you would like to come forward, we have a little something for you. I'm going to say a couple of words here, but Susie's was a member of the Plan Commission from May of 2018 until May of 2021. Over 30 petitions were considered during her time. Key petitions that were considered were the McKinley Road redevelopment phases 2 and 3, the Swift property, commercial developments were the Westwood Square, various restaurants going in there, the Forester Hotel, the corner of Everett and Telegraph Roads, the development there, the McCormick Nature Preserve subdivision, and the comprehensive plans for the Waukegan Road Business District and the Route 60 corridor entrance. So thank you so much. The next group. Is this on? You just ran away. Okay.
Use it.
So I feel like I have a toy here in front of me. But in any event, the next person is Michael Freeman. Michael, please come forward. Michael was a member of the Plan Commission from 2015 until 2021, 6 years of service. Again, over 30 petitions that you looked at during your time here on the Plan Commission, and so much insight and so much care and comments from you from various projects, from also the Oak Knoll Woodlands project, the redevelopment of the former municipal services site, the Kelmscott Park, the East Lane subdivision, the McKinley Road redevelopment, the preserve at Wesley, the Swift property, the Waterway Gas and Wash, the Galley Restaurant, Chase Bank, Westwood Square, the Forester Hotel, also the corner of Everett and Telegraph Road, the McCormick Nature Preserve, and the comprehensive plans for the Waukegan Road Business District and the Route 60 entrance corridor. Michael, thank you very much. Thank you. And last but not least, the former chairman of the Plan Commission, Rosemary Kerr. Rosemary, please come forward. Again, 6 years of service from May of 2015 to May of 2021. Rosemary, you were instrumental in so many projects as the past Plan Commissioners here. Also, over 30 petitions that were considered. Many went late into the night, and you kept us all here. But thank you so much for your service. Key petitions that were considered under your tenure were the Oak Knoll Woodlands project, also the redevelopment of the former municipal service site, the East Lane subdivision, the McKinley Road redevelopment, the preserve at Wesley's, the Swift property, the Waterway Gas and Wash, the Galley Restaurant, Chase Bank, Westwood Square, Forrester Hotel, and many, many others, and also the comprehensive plan at Waukegan Road Business District in the 60 corridor. So thank you so much, Rosemary, for your service. We appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you. I don't know if any of you guys want to come forward and say anything, good or bad, pro or con. Michael, you're always good for a couple words, but yeah, please.
So, thank you, John. Thank you for your service, and thank you all for your service as well. I just would just say, for those at home that are watching, just a call out to public service. And our city does not stay the way it is and maintain its bond ratings without the help of all of these volunteers. And I'm sure you hear it still. I heard it many times about all the perks that were given to, planning commission members. And I assure you there are none, other than a true sense of serving our community. So, and which is worth it in and of itself. So, my ties to Lake Forest, my wife and I raised our kids here for most of the time, about the last 20 years. But I'm not from Lake Forest originally. My parents are immigrants. I grew up on the west side of Chicago. But it really is amazing to watch all the different people. And Susie's history here in the community is so important, such an important perspective, and bringing all those together is really terrific. So again, for those at home, I would say, get on the Lake Forest Caucus website, fill out a volunteer application, volunteer to serve on the caucus, if not in one of these many positions that are so important to our city. And also, I'd be remiss if I didn't call out Kathy. I think unless you're a petitioner for the commission or some other, you just don't appreciate what a terrific staff we have, and Kathy in particular. And we're very fortunate to have her. It was a real pleasure getting to know you and work with you, and I'm really appreciative for that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I think Michael said most of it, but certainly having been on the zoning board also, and Kathy is such a resource for the city, it's terrific. And we always build upon good decisions of those who went before us. And I wish you continued success. I know you're dedicated, and good luck, and continue to look for the best for Lake Forest. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I might as well too. I just wanted to thank you all for your service. As you know, it's really, it's great to be able to manage the change that comes into Lake Forest. And really, this is one of the most important boards because you really see that change up front and the big picture kind of change. And you really are in charge of that. And it's really important to stick to the ordinances. And you really are the firewall when it comes to that. So thank you for your service. We all understand how much it is, the many hours that you put in, and we really appreciate it. Those veterans of us who have been there, we really know the kind of service you put in, and we really appreciate it. So thank you for all your work.
Thank you. Again, thank each one of you. I hope everybody here this evening and those watching from home, I think the comments that were made by each one of them echo the service that they provided to the city. So thank you each again. The first item before the commission this evening is the recognition of the Plan Commission for the consideration of the minutes from November 10th and February 9th.
And you only have the February 9th in front of you tonight.
Okay, my bad. So just the February 9th then meeting notes. Are there any comments or questions or clarifications on those? No. Hearing none, do I have a motion?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. The first matter before the commission this evening is the continuation of the special use permit for the CBD plan development at 1401 Northwestern Avenue for the adaptive reuse of an office building for multifamily residences. At this point, I'd like to ask the commissioner members if there are any conflicts of interest or ex parte communications in regards to this matter.
No.
No.
At this time, I'd also like to see and swear in any witnesses who think they might speak either in support or in opposition, not only of this matter, but any other matters on the agenda this evening. For those that think they might testify, if you could just stand where you are and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly state that the testimony you shall give in this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God? Okay. Thank you. Before I ask maybe the petitioner to come forward, and before I ask the city staff maybe for any presentation on this, I'd ask my fellow commissioners if there are any additional questions for the special use permit at 1401 Northwestern. No additional questions. We spent almost an hour at our February 9th meeting for those not familiar with that at home, and we discussed this very thoroughly. So I see no questions. It was also, the public testimony was left open. Is there anyone here this evening from the public that would like to come forward to the podium to speak in this matter? Anyone? Okay. Seeing nobody coming forward, and we have no calls this evening. At this point, do we have a motion for the approval of a special use permit for a CBD plan development at 1401 Northwestern Avenue for the adaptive use of an office building for multifamily residences?
So moved.
Second.
Is there a second? Before we make the final motion, Kathy, there's nothing that we need to add to that. It would be pursuant to what's in the staff report
Nothing
there.
further.
Okay.
And we do not need to do roll call votes anymore because I can see all, or I guess I can connect all of you with your voices.
Okay. So all those in favor for the approval of the special use permit?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Schwarthout. Thank you for being here. Okay, agenda item number 5. The matter before the commission is consideration for a request for a special use permit for bunkers on Western at 950 Northwestern Avenue, a property partially located within 150 feet of property zoned residential. At this point, I'd like to ask commission members if there's any ex parte communication or conflicts of interest.
No.
I'll ask the petitioner to come forward to our podium. Mr. Jeff Orso, nice to see you again.
Nice to see you.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
We're ready for your presentation. Go ahead.
All right. Sorry, I didn't put anything too formal together, but we did have a different name, so we were hoping to use Duffs, which is D-U-F-F. So that is one difference. But just to give a quick overlay, this property or space was previously going to be Scouts, which was pre-COVID, designed to be what we are currently at Donati's and Jefe Sacco's, in addition to the space that we're proposing up front. So when we built out Donati's, we planned on serving at the time a brewery to move in. That didn't come to fruition, so we're still hoping to move forward, and what we wanted to do is a family-friendly bar restaurant that includes experience-driven 3 simulators, golf simulators, We wanted some open-air seating and kind of really grasp it in the community. We have a lot of new restaurants moving in town, Sophia's, Lake Colonial, stuff like that. So we have a lot of great restaurants moving in, and they're going to be at the $50 plus price point per person or a plate approximately. We're going to be right at that $15, which is going to make us a lot more family friendly, so and a lot more inclusive to families and kids and stuff like that. So we really want to jump on that, and that's kind of been our business model for the last 12 years. So I'm really excited to move forward with this. Hopefully you guys are too. I'm happy to answer any questions or thoughts on this project.
Thank you so
Yes,
much.
of course.
Does anybody, well, why don't we first go to identification of any issues from the city staff?
Sure. Thank you, Chairman Dixon. The commission has recently seen, in the last 2 to 3 years, a number of requests for special use permits for restaurants in Westwood Square. Kuro Bistro was perhaps more than 3 years ago. You recently saw Lucky Duck, and then Mr. Urso's Donati's and Hefe's Tacos. And then you saw Scouts. Scouts was approved by this commission and then returned sometime during the pandemic, and it had asked for approval of a drive-through window. And there were some issues raised around that, so that was not approved. That project did not move forward. Then there, as Mr. Urso said, there was a brewery looking at the space, and for various reasons that didn't pan out. So now we do have Mr. Urso, and I believe you do have a partner, correct?
Yeah, so Joe Neasley, he owns Chiefs Pub. Me and him are partnering up on this space. Joe and I have been friends for 25 plus years, and we're neighbors. So we, Joe has really, I think, improved Chiefs Pub over the years. I don't know if you guys remember it when it first opened, from when his father had it. When Joe took it over about 5-6 years ago, it has completely turned around to 180. It is way more community inclusive now. You'll catch the football team there, a lot of sports activities. So we're going to take that same model. We're going to apply it down the street too. Joe's bursting at the seam, so there's plenty of room in town to keep growing into the families. Lake Forest is getting younger. People are moving in from the city, a lot of in part to do with restaurants and new experiences opening. So we want to make sure we're here to deliver that.
Thank you. I thought it was important for you to know that there's a connection with 2 well-established business owners in the community. This restaurant is before you tonight because a portion, not this entire space, but a portion of the restaurant is within 150 feet of a residential zoning district. If the space was a bit smaller or shifted a bit further east, it would not be before you. The restaurant would be approved by right. Because the Westwood Square has had a number of restaurants, you'll note in the conditions that there are a number of conditions that were established early on. I think they even predate Kuro Bistro, that apply to this entire site, and they have to do with hours of delivery, the one-way nature of the alley, and some other items. So I think it's important to know that those have previously been approved. And then there are some conditions that are specific to this particular use. Mr. Urso and Mr. Neasley do propose that the front of the Western Avenue street frontage will have opening windows on those 3 days a year that it's warm enough to open the windows. No, hopefully it's more than that. And then we will also work with the owners to determine whether there's enough space right up against the front for perhaps some 2-person tables. We've done that throughout the community. At Foodstuffs is an example where we have some seating on the public right-of-way. We do have a requirement, in fact, Gearhart's Bakery also has some outdoor seating. We do have a requirement that a minimum distance of a 5-foot width needs to be preserved, remain clear for pedestrians to walk. So this seems very consistent with the previous approvals for Westwood Square, and I can't tell you the number of times we get questions about this space and then the space that was previously King Ma's. So I think the community is very fortunate to have had significant restaurant interest during and coming out of the pandemic, and at your next meeting, you will see a request for a special use permit for Sophia Steak at Laurel and Western Avenue. That too is within 150 feet of a residential zoning district. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. Are there any questions, comments, clarifications from commission members, either to the petitioner or to the city? I'll start on my right, Commissioner Davey.
I guess my only question is, and I'm new, less than a year on the plan commission, but it seems to me like all of these, and you're referencing it as it relates to forthcoming petition, but it seems like all these restaurants that are on Western, or maybe not all, but some are, we will consistently hear the request for a special use for this 150-foot variance issue, just as a function of where they're located. And has this been the case consistently over the years then, I assume?
It has. My recollection is that the requirement for a special use permit for restaurants within 150 feet was put in place after the Grill on Laurel came in. Before that, restaurants were permitted by right. The Grill on Laurel did generate a lot of discussions a lot of input from residents in the condominium buildings further west on Laurel. We are embarking on, we are reinitiating the comprehensive plan update this year within probably the next 60 days. So I think that will be a good question to revisit. Should restaurants in certain locations require special use permits and others not? Should there be other regulations, or should there be fewer regulations? So we will put that on our list to make sure we deliberate on that as part of that comp plan update.
Yeah, it seems, I mean, obviously you want to be deferential to the folks that have residential properties within that proximity, but by the same token, it's not like it's a new phenomena. So you're buying a home there, you know what's behind you, vice versa. We want to be thoughtful about all the conditions that you've listed out here for both the site and for the specific operator. But I mean, it seems like it's something that will consistently come up if we want to have a vibrant downtown area with options for these families. So, thanks.
Commissioner Moorhead?
Has there, a question for Kathy, has there been any correspondence related to this matter from the public?
We have not received any correspondence or any calls on this matter.
And then on the sidewalk seating issue, I looked at the code, and I know we corresponded about this. I wasn't sure who had the authority to approve that. I don't think it's the Plan Commission. Is it the City Council, or is it city staff? Where does that rest?
It is city staff with seasonal seating in the public right-of-way. We do consider that on an annual basis, consider the location, consider the traffic volumes. We do monitor it, and if there's an issue with trash or with the sidewalk being blocked, we do follow up.
Okay, and then the open windows, is it the same thing? The city staff recommends that, and then it's approved by the City Council, or is that, I don't think that rests with us, does it?
The opening windows are really a design element of the building.
Okay.
And in this case, this building has already gone through a building review board process. You've seen various updates occurring on the building, and the concept of having opening windows along Western Avenue in this building has been out there for a while. It just has depended on which tenant might be taking the space. Okay. So it really is a design element. Certainly, it could be acknowledged in the special use permit that that indoor-outdoor theme was proposed and that it was acknowledged as part of the deliberations.
Okay. And then just one question for petitioner. You're not intending to operate any ghost kitchen or anything like that in this space, are you?
When you say ghost kitchen, I mean, I have a different definition of ghost kitchen, but we're going to use our current Donati's kitchen to serve the space. So we're not adding any more square footage in kitchen usage.
Yeah.
So everything's going to be cooked right where we currently are approved and using for a kitchen.
Okay, and you're not going to let any third-party restaurants use the kitchen as
No.
like a delivery?
It's just the only, we have Susie Swirl inside Donati's at both our Lake Bluff and Lake Forest locations. Susie Swirl is technically a different company. I partnered with about a year and a half ago. So they do have different ownership
Right.
on the actual soft serve part of it, but that would be the only non-ownership I have.
Okay, all right, that's all I have.
Commissioner Pasquesi?
I have no questions.
Commissioner Montaigne?
Yeah, thank you. So, two quick questions. I think you've already answered one of them partially. So no change to the venting systems, so? it's
No,
as
and
is.
yeah, and our venting is the furthest east possible on the building, and it also goes out the second floor. So it's going at about 25, 30 feet versus the rest of the restaurants are on the first floor.
Right.
So it should have the least impact.
Thank you. And then just help me understand how pickups and deliveries will happen. I think the way that I understood it in this is that, so if it's Grubhub or Uber Eats, they'll have to access those orders from the garage?
Well, I am adamantly against both those companies, but I do do business with them once in a while. So we are going to leave Donati's operation exactly how it is. So we're going to run our pickups and deliveries. Our deliveries are through the garage currently. This menu is going to be very specific for dine-in. I don't anticipate a whole lot of delivery on that. Most full-service restaurants aren't huge on delivery. Pizza, obviously, we're big on delivery. As far as takeout, whatever comes, but I think, there's great parking throughout the site, so I think we'll be able to, the people egress and egress from the site very easily. But yes, all our deliveries are through the basement.
So
Not-
for
go ahead,
for
I'm sorry.
customer pickup, that's the only thing that would be allowed on Western? Curbside
Yeah,
pickup.
customer pickup, just like it currently is. Right now, we really, our dining is outside. So in the winter, we don't have dining, but they either park on Western. Also, the parking lot where Kuro is actually parking for all of Westwood Square. So it's not designated for Kuro. So, and then there's also a large basement plus parking on both sides of Western.
Yeah, and the reason I'm asking the question is those companies that you despise tend to not be, they tend to not think about double parking, for
Right.
example, and
Yeah.
throwing the four-way flashes on and blocking all of the traffic, and right. So I'm just trying to think about that from a residency perspective.
Yeah, so the only one that actually is relevant would be DoorDash. So Grubhub, we self-deliver. Uber Eats, we self-deliver. So basically, people order on their platform, but my drivers deliver it. DoorDash sends their own drivers. So on average, at the pizza place currently, we got maybe 4 to 5 DoorDashes a day. So that's, I don't anticipate that many more coming with this new restaurant.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
I just would follow up on that, Mr. Orso, in regards to the current setup that you have with Donati's. Have you had any issues with the pickups going through the basement? Any problems with that? Is it
No.
work the way we, when I remember when you came before the Plan Commission and we spent some time on, the process and the procedures that you had in place then? Any issues with those or any?
No, the pickups were great. If anything, I would love if the city eventually considers to make those 4 front spots a 10-minute loading. But with that exception, pickups have been working excellent. People always find a spot on Western. There's always an open spot at Western on our peak. It goes all the way down through the train station, et cetera. So deliveries, we run out of the basement. And that has been a non-issue. So, we've been through the winter, we've been through ice, we've been through everything, and it's going very smoothly so far.
Good. Maybe we could ask the city to look at that, maybe at certain hours, make that 10-minute, not throughout the whole day, but maybe certain times after 5 PM or something, 10 minutes, or I don't know if that's
We have
feasible.
worked with some other businesses. You'll see some signs up and down Western. It's been a bit fluid depending on what the need is, but yes, we will work. We'll kind of see how it plays out, see what's needed, and it might not be 4, it might not be 2. They aren't spaces that we regularly monitor or enforce. So there's,
Right.
some people obey the signs and some people don't.
Right, but certainly, something that could be looked at not only for the proposal of Duff's, but the other restaurants and businesses in there too.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Is there any public testimony on this? Anybody here in the audience that's here this evening to speak on this matter? Any other final questions?
No.
Anything, Jeff, that you want to add?
No, you know, if there's any, you know, been in Lake Forest as a business owner for on and off for 12 years, and then we've had Lake Bluff. We always strive to keep restaurants clean, family friendly is our big thing. You know, raising my family here as well, so you know, it's really important to us to keep this a first class operation. So, just want to let you guys know that's what we tend to do, and that's what we will do.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Anything additional from the city? Okay, the testimony and the comment period is now closed. At this point, we can have discussion amongst ourselves. Any discussion, or anybody want to add anything?
I just want to add that I think, you know, thank you to the petitioners for their continued commitment, quite frankly, to the city of Lake Forest, particularly through COVID, right? It's been a really difficult market, and I think showing this commitment and having a couple of businesses that we can point to give us confidence that they're run with class, and that they're open to feedback. I don't have any concerns that the neighbors, for example, if the music's up too loud and the doors happen to be open, that the petitioners will address that.
Thank you, Commissioner LaMontagne. I think that's excellent point, and you know, certainly I think a testament to the petitioner here this evening is that one of the former plan commissioners, who is probably still listening, who lives nearby, didn't have any comments for you, and you know who I'm referring to, Mr. Urso. So that's how much faith she has in you, and you know, that speaks volumes, and certainly gives me comfort, because I know she has done her due diligence and probably followed up with you on a number of questions before this evening, and you've certainly answered, I think, all of our questions. So thank you so much, and I echo what Commissioner LaMontagne has said. You know, you are an experienced operator, a long-time resident here in Lake Forest, and we appreciate, you know, you and your continued efforts to bring business to our community. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
At this point, do we have a motion for the special use permit of Duff's now at 950 Northwestern Avenue?
I'll make a motion to approve the special use permit to authorize Duff's on Western to locate and operate in Westwood Center at 950 Northwestern Avenue, subject to obviously the conditions pertaining to the overall Westwood Center site and the conditions specific to Duff's on Western as articulated by the city staff.
Thank you, Commissioner Davey. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Urso, can I just ask you, is it just Duff's, or is it Duff's on Western?
So I think we're gonna go with Duff's.
Okay,
So we
thank
got Pucks in Lake Bluff, Chiefs in Lake Forest, Duff's. We were looking for that one syllable, you know, pub. So.
There are a number of us that can identify with.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's I like that name better than Bunkers. And is it a reference at all to Simpsons or purely the golf?
No,
Okay.
that's an
'Cause
unfortunate
that's-
byproduct. Yeah. So no, it's definitely Duff and a
Good.
golf ball. So,
That's good.
yeah.
All right.
And thank you, Kathy Zerniak. I've known for 12 years, and I just want to thank you. We have been working together, and when I started off doing these things, I was literally a kid, and she over the years has been great. So you guys are really lucky to have her as part of your council. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Jeff.
you.
Appreciate it.
And there'll be a table reserved for the Plan Commission after meetings regularly?
And a simulator.
Yeah, right, Anderson. Okay, the agenda item number 6 we are up to here. This is a preliminary consideration and input on a zoning change request for a parcel located between 615 and 691 West Everett Road, a zone change from R5 Single Family Resident District with a 3-acre lot minimum to R2 Single Family Resident District with a 20,000 square foot lot minimum. At this point, I'd like to ask the commission members if there's any conflicts of interest or ex parte communication.
No.
No.
I will ask the petitioner to come forward to our podium. Mr. Joe Pasolino.
Yes.
Welcome, and thank you for coming this evening. We're ready for your presentation.
Thank you very much. Thank you to Kathy for setting this up, and thank you to the commissioners for listening. This is a preliminary presentation of what is going to be called Old Everett Oaks. We're looking for a rezoning from effectively an R4 because the lots there, I live at 631 West Everett, and if I can show you guys the lay of the land a little bit. And here's Everett Road over here, and here's my house on Memphis, about 500-foot driveway. This is the subject lot, lot 1, full 2-acre lot. Never been developed before.
Mr. Pasolino, maybe you could pass that around and you could go back to the microphone?
Maybe, yeah, everybody can't hear you from home, but I do think that the map that Commissioner Davey now has been handed is in our,
We have this in our packet.
yeah, we have this in our packet.
Okay, great.
That's provided to us.
All right.
I actually think it's one of the first pages, if not the first page. Really identifies it pretty easily, but
Okay.
thank you.
All right. In any event, I live at the end of the road, and about 20 years ago, I built a big house there, thinking that the other 2-acre lots in front, Lot 1 is the subject lot, and Lot 2 is on the east side of the driveway. Lot 1 is the one I want to develop would grow into big homes. For many years, Lot 2, for example, was for sale, starting at $1.5 million. It just recently sold last fall for about $555,000. So basically, the value it was basically going to be a tear down, and that's one of the reasons that we went and built there, because we figured there were going to be 3 lots there with good sized homes. Well, that never did develop because by the time we got to 2007, of course, we had the housing bubble burst, and all bets were off, especially with big homes and big properties. The good news is that in the last 2 years, ironically due to the pandemic or what have you, the market for housing market in Lake Forest, as you know, has gone up quite a bit. It was on the floor for many years, 10, 11 years there, until about 2020, and all of a sudden people were trying to get out of Dodge, out of the cities, etc. I have a lot of experience in development in commercial and in residential, and for example, I built 2 townhouses last 2 years, and I finished them last summer, about a half mile west of here in Lake Forest Chateau. They went for probably at least $200,000 more, over $1 million for 3,200-foot townhomes on very little property. And the buyers were from cities, one from the city of Chicago, a lady doctor, and wanted to get out of the city, had a very fancy place in Lincoln Park, so she bought there. I didn't even have them on the market for 2 or 3 days. They went like hotcakes. And then also, for example, over in Lake Forest Heights subdivision, where I used to live, about 850 feet due east of where my house is. In the last 2 years, houses are going for, that would have gone for maybe 750, 800,000 2.5 years ago, are now going for 965 and what have you. So there's been a great demand for new construction. Well, we don't see any new construction in town, and I'm trying to change that a little bit because I think that the diamond, it's definitely ready. There isn't any new construction. I don't know when anybody smelled any fresh lumber in this town, because I haven't in many, many years, at least residentially speaking, at least on the west side for sure. So I would like to change that dynamic and offer people some new construction at $1 million to $1.4 million price point. These houses for R2, if it was rezoned as such and subdivided, I think you already seen this too. This is the plan. The proposed plan from my engineers, the site plan. I'll hand this out too if you guys have it.
I think we have a lot of these. I think we also have this map as well.
Yeah. All right, anyway, I'll prove it.
Thank you.
That Everett Road So this lot fronts on Everett Road. My lot is way back. It's a lot in depth, about 460 feet from the road starts the body of my lot. I have a 20-foot driveway there. It's actually about 13 foot wide now, but as part of this, it would be expanded to the 18-foot requisite 18-foot width, and of course beefed up. This is a minor rezoning, a minor subdivision. It's under 5. Would involve under 5 lots. So we'd be going from a 2-acre to 4 1/2 acre parcels. R2, each parcel will be a full half acre, 21,780 square feet. It would be about 110 feet wide each lot, and they would face along, I would call Old Everett Lane, which I would call the little road that comes in off Everett Road. Would have very little impact on the traffic or the rest of it visually because it's set way back from the street. The only house you'd see is the first one in Lot 1. The rest of them would be going from north to south from Everett Road back to my body of my lot. Why this? Why now? Well, a few years ago, I went in preliminarily with Kathy on looking into this, and of course we hit COVID. I was busy with some office building I was building and a couple of townhouses. So now here we are in 2022, and it's even more critical, I think, now that we start re-looking at it, because this is no longer 2002 anymore. This is 2022. Things have changed in the world and in this town. We went through a tremendous downturn starting in 2007, and as everyone knows, the housing bubble bursted. Many of the big houses on big lots lost a third or more of their value, okay, including mine probably, although I never tried to sell it at that time. But I know that people that tried to sell during that period of time from 7 till probably about 19 or 20 really had to take a big haircut in order to sell their properties. The smaller houses on the smaller lots retained some value. They went down a little bit too, but in the last 2 years, during the pandemic, the smaller lots on the smaller houses on smaller lots have gone up tremendously because the demand is there for reasonably priced houses, reasonably sized, and reasonable sized properties. I used to live in Lake Forest Heights on 1084 Mount Vernon, which is about 850, 900 feet from the subject property. I lived there 13 years, and that was a bigger house because I built that house in '88, about a year or two before the bulk ordinance. But most of the houses there are around 3,000 feet, give or take, on 130-acre lots. This would be half-acre lots with 3,500, 4,000 square foot houses, maybe 3,000 minimum, up to about 4,000 max, plus 600-foot garages. I would like to build houses there, start with 1 or 2 that are consonant with my house, which is basically a big, kind of a wide, I kind of stole from Adler Designs, really, a little bit from the old days. And it's a lovely house. I'm a little biased, but I believe you'll see that if you see the pictures of it. I've got some here. But what I'd like to do is build similar type houses. I have really nice curb appeal, but albeit about half the size, because my house is about 8,000 feet. Well, why would somebody who has an 8,000 foot house on a 2+ acre property want to put in smaller houses right in front of the property and spend a lot of money in doing so? Well, answer is simple. As is, my house is basically like an island of luxury and kind of a empty sea, if you will. We thought that the Lot 2, the east side lot, which was owned by the original Frank DeMarie family, the daughter-in-law has lived there for many years. She finally died about a year ago, and then it was sold about a year later. But in that time, it was never sold because basically there was no demand for a bigger lot. I found that to be the case on a lot of lots over the last 15 years. I had back in 2001 to 2006, I built 5 spec homes plus my home at that time. I sold them. They were probably all around 6,000, 6,500 foot from Gavin Court, 2 of them on North Carroll Meadow, 2 on Gages Lane. I bought several lots at that time from Barry Carroll, if you remember Barry Carroll, God rest his soul, good man. We built those houses and sold them, fairly quickly at the time. I went back to Zillow this morning, not that Zillow is the be-all and end-all, but I looked at the prices on these that they estimate right now, the Zestimate on them, versus what I sold them for, and it's basically identical. In some cases, now they're less than they were 20 years ago. So it's pretty evident to me, having done the townhomes recently, looking back at the lots that I sold and built 20 years ago, and they were nice homes, and they've been kept up, so it's not the problem of that, that the demand now, and I think going forward for many years, is going to be more moderate houses on more moderate properties. Now, a half-acre property is not a small property. It's fine. You know, you can put, like I said, up to 4,000, a little over 4,000 square foot house under R2 zoning there, plus a 600, basically a 3-car garage. So it's perfect. I've been working on quite a few nice plans that I could do, from, you know, French country to, you know, your classic Georgian classical design and different things on the outside. And then what I did at Lake Forest Chateau, what I did was I opened floor plans, and I did, you know, the latest bells and whistles and appliances and what have you for the house, the color schemes, the flooring, everything kind of up to the modern thing. Now, there's a lot of buyers that are coming in, young buyers from the city. There's even older buyers that want to get out of the city. We found that to be the case at Lake Forest Chateau as well, that they just wanted to get out, and they plunked down $1,075,000 in I wasn't even on the market 2 days. My realtor over there is my lovely wife. She didn't have to do too much. So it was good in that regard. But I see there's a demand for that. Now, if you have a half-acre lot, which is still good, I'm trying to keep the country ambiance there with a nice, basically a little lane going up, 18 foot wide, so nothing big. I'm going to offer my driveway to it, so it comes up right there. The houses would face east, okay, to the lane. The backyards would be west, perfect, because there's a tremendous vista looking west with nothing there except an old farmhouse all the way to the creek to the west. So that's a good situation. Probably the garages would be on the north sides, okay? They may or may not have drive-arounds, but they may just have sidewalks going up to them. But basically, I've done a lot of research on this, and I think the time is ripe for some changes on the west side of Lake Forest in terms of density. I'm not asking for, you know, multifamily or townhomes or condos. We're talking about still the same genre, single-family, nice homes. Lake Forest Heights, I don't want to say it would be an extension of that because you're only talking about 4 homes here, but still, Lake Forest Heights has probably had one of the best appreciations in the last 2 years of any places in this town. Because again, they're, for the most part, up till now, under $1 million price points on reasonably sized lots. A lot of people come to the city. Heard a joke the other day. They were coming around, and somebody said to me, I work in Gurnee with my commercial, and said, the lady called and kept saying, "Who's going to cut my lawn?" A young couple moved in. "What do you mean? It's your lawn?" They go, "Well, yeah, who's cutting it?" They didn't realize that they have to cut their own lawn. We've been in apartments for years or condos. We don't understand that. So this is what you're getting, a lot of that stuff too. So a half acre is a reasonable size lot to be able to maintain. I don't think, unfortunately, I know that there's been a good housing market, but I don't even think, based on my research on my homes that I've built and others I've looked at, in our neighborhood, for example, Country Place and over on North Mount Vernon Avenue where they have 1.5 acre plus lots, you know, big homes, 6,000 foot type homes. Unfortunately, they have not really recovered their pre-2007 values in many cases. So I think the time is right for the right lot, and I think this is the right lot because it's a lot in depth. It's not like you're taking a wide lot and putting a bunch of houses along the front of the road. You're basically at one lot, one house you're going to see along Everett. The rest you're not going to basically see. They're going to be way back. At least the first one will probably be 200 feet from the road, and then the rest of them will be up to 450 feet, 460 feet deep from the road. Basically, I think the time is now for that. I think the demographics are going to continue for that. I think with people getting married later, with fewer children, setting up whole households later, I think you're going to also see a demand for more reasonably priced and smaller lots and smaller houses, generally speaking. And I think the west side is ripe for that because we've always had really pretty big sized lots. It's been kind of open lands out there. But you do have Lake Forest Heights, which was put back in the 70s. Very successful. I, in fact, when I look back in hindsight, I would have done a lot better appreciation-wise on my old house than I would on my new house after spending a lot more money. But in any event, I think the time is right and long overdue for half-acre lots in this area versus a 2-acre lot, which basically, and I think I gave you guys, and I have in writing if you didn't see it, a recent history in the last 5 years of lots, and I broke them down into less than 1 acre lots and 1 to 2.1 acre lots. The average lot size was about a half acre in this case for the lots that sold during that period of time, that 5-year period of time. The average lot was 1.5 to 1.6 acres for the bigger lots. And if you look at my chart there, basically it took about, the price per square foot was about $20 or plus for the smaller lots, the under 1 acre, which are mostly half acres. And they were like $7.79 a foot on average for the larger lots, which is about a 2.6 times difference. Now you would expect a little bit more of a premium per square foot on a smaller lot because it's smaller, but you wouldn't expect that much. And I have also looked at the ones since that time that are actively listed now, and basically the spread for the list price is actually going to about 2.8 plus on those. So we're seeing a bigger spread. I have a house, I have one of my lots on Gage Lane, 850 Gage Lane, I'll wrap this up, that the music stopped in 2007 and I didn't get to build that one. So it's been sitting there for 15 years. I've been trying to sell it on and off. Haven't had one offer, not one written offer. I've had a couple of realtors on it. We've tried to market ourselves, et cetera, as well. Cindy's got it on the market now for down to $399. I paid about $350 for it in 2001. Can't give it away. I've had people inquire about it, a few. But then I say, well, check with your architect, your builder, what you think it's going to cost you, because they want to build a 4,500 foot house on it, let's say, 4 or 5 bedroom, 3.5 baths, typical thing, nice. It's a really nice lot, 1.5 acres. It's an infill lot because I built 2 houses there in that neighborhood and sold them again. It was back in the early 2000s, 2003, 4. And then I built another 2, and I sold one lot there in about 2006. Same lot. In fact, they touch each other for $605,000 at that time. 1.5 acre lot. And now I can't even get half of that for that same lot. So I think the writing's on the wall for this. I know that Kathy mentioned that the comprehensive plan might be changed a little bit coming up, so I wanted to give some input and jumpstart this a little bit. I'm willing to put my money into this. I've got to remediate the lot because 25 years ago, the subject lot, FEMA changed the insurance rate maps. They raised the base flood elevation by 6 inches or a foot, which put me now into a floodplain situation, so I have to remediate. But my engineers have worked that out. We've been dealing with their engineers on it. I have to go to FEMA and get a conditional map of a map of revision. I think they call it letter of amendment. And I've been told by my engineers it shouldn't be a problem. It's just paperwork. Basically, it involves doing some filling and some cutting. In the buildable area, I have to cut down 120% of that. So the backyards will be cut down 6 inches, 8 inches or so. I'll put a 4-inch subdrain there, which is a very small storm sewer that'll run from an inlet on the far back lot running north towards Everett Road. There'll be an outlet detention structure at the road there. It'll slow down any major rains. And then I've got to go underneath and tie into that huge storm sewer main, which runs along the north side of Everett Road, about a block west into the creek there, the Skokie Ditch, the north branch of the Chicago River. Is a huge one. In fact, we've opened that manhole and you can walk in there without even ducking. It's so big. And it's always pretty dry unless you have a really big rain. So that's what it involves. It involves, my engineers estimate, $200,000 or maybe more, it depends. But most of it is, I have to truck out about 75, 80 loads of dirt out of there to get the proper, to cut it down to the so-called detention. But it's going to be a dry detention, so you'll not know the difference once the grass is in, etc. So I'm willing to do this. I'm not looking for any handouts or anything. I'm willing to do this on my own, and I'm willing and able to do so. And I would really like to get back in the game here on this and really kind of, I don't want to say transform, but give another look to the west side, which I think we need some new construction.
Thank
But
you.
it's very much in demand.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thanks
Thanks for listening.
I'll turn it over to city staff for any comments. Ms. Cerniak?
Thank you, Chairman Dixon. I'd like to cover 4 points. I'd like to explain why this is before you tonight, talk a little bit about zone changes at a high level, talk about this specific request, and then review what we're looking for from you tonight. We brought this petition before you today for an initial presentation from Mr. Pasolino and initial direction, because as Mr. Pasolino noted, This property would need to have some approvals from FEMA. There has been preliminary engineering done. Our engineering staff would need to complete reviews. But because this request involves a request for a zone change, it really didn't seem to make sense from the staff perspective to have Mr. Pasolino continue to spend time and money finalizing the subdivision until we at least heard some preliminary discussion and direction from the commission on the requested zone change. Zone changes in general rarely come before the plan commission, or rarely are requested. I can remember only a handful. When they do come before the plan commission, they are really connected with a specific development, which this is, and then the zone change is approved only in conjunction with that development. Normally, zone changes on a broader scale happen in conjunction with a comprehensive plan update. For instance, in the 80s, most of the east side of Lake Forest was rezoned from various residential districts to R4, so that was a wholesale rezoning. So zone changes, excuse me, are looked at very carefully by the Plan Commission in my experience. This particular lot is unusual. As we dug into it a little bit, we did provide some history in the staff report to explain why the existing 5 lots are 2-acre lots and the property is zoned R5. Normally, the R5 zoning district has been applied as almost a holding district when properties are newly annexed to the city. In this case, this property was R5. The city in the early mid-1970s condemned a portion of the property, which was then owned by the DeMarie family, to allow Old Elm to curve around and connect to the extended Everett Road. So I hope that's illustrated fairly clearly in your packet. It was a condemnation, so the city did go to court, and the court judgment, as part of the compensation to the DeMarie family, required that the city allow the lots, rather than to be 3 acres, consistent with the R5 zoning, allowed them to be 2 acres. And that's why today we have an inconsistency between the zoning and the actual lot size. Why the property was never rezoned to R4, I can't explain that. It just didn't happen. That could be something we'd look at in the future. So this lot 1 of the DeMarie 5-lot subdivision, is the only lot that is not developed. To the west of this lot is a property that appears to be fully within the floodway, which is the most intensely impacted land. A portion of this property is in the floodway, as Mr. Pasolino explained, and part is in the floodplain. So any development of the site will require coordination with FEMA and will require, again, as Mr. Pasolino described, some compensatory storage on these lots. So it's an interesting parcel in that it has an interesting history, that it's currently non-conforming to the zoning, that it is impacted by the neighboring drainage channel. It's also interesting in that it is one of 2 front lots to a lot in depth. The rear lot, lot 3, is developed and is owned by Mr. Pasolino and occupied by Mr. Pasolino. So this property has a long, narrow configuration, and there's a property in the identical configuration to the east. So it does set up somewhat of a unique situation. In the staff report, I did review for you the criteria that must be considered for a zone change. In this general area, you do have somewhat of a diverse pattern of zoning, unlike some areas which are, many neighborhoods are covered by R4 zoning, for instance. In this particular situation, you do have Lake Forest Heights, which is located about 850 to 900 feet east along the frontage of Everett Road from this property. The zoning then transitions to R4, then to R5, and then as you cross onto the newer part of Everett Road, there is some additional R2 zoning on the north side of Everett Road up adjacent to St. Mary's Primary School. So it is a unique area. It's interspersed with preserved open lands to add further diversity. It is a bit unusual to have a pattern of zoning that goes from smaller lots to larger lots to smaller lots to open space to smaller lots. It's a bit inconsistent with other zoning patterns in the community. So again, we're really bringing this for you tonight. I believe you will hear some public testimony. You did receive a couple of letters, which are at your places, and we're looking for direction from you, so we're not, so that the developer's not spinning his wheels, and so that we can move forward in an appropriate manner. And we're looking forward to your direction. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there questions or requests from commission members back either to the staff or the petitioner? Maybe I'll go to Mr. Commissioner Pasquesi.
I have no specific questions right now.
Commissioner Lamontagne?
Yeah, first question is, why 4? Why not 2?
Well, that's a good question. And the answer is that because on this particular lot, because it is 200 feet east to west and 440 feet north to south, it lends itself nicely into tranches of half-acre lots. Now, you could do 2 lots, you could do 3 lots. I've looked at both of those ideas. The thing is, though, I have to spend quite a bit of money on making the lot buildable, whether I put 1 lot, 2 lots, 3 lots, or 4 lots. So I thought that the type of houses that you put in an R2 zoning house are much more marketable and in demand today in this town, for sure. I'll have to ask any realtor. They would love to see new construction of 3,000, 3,500 square foot houses on half-acre lots. They don't exist. You can't find them hardly. Certainly not new construction. So I thought that this would be, given this type of lot, it's not going to have any effect really on the street because the lot is going to be in depth. So you have to go up the little lane even to see most of the houses after they're built. So I thought 4 or 2. I think 4 would be just as least of an impact as 4. I'm not sure it would make much difference, but I'm reasonable, and we can discuss.
Thank you. Second question that I have for you is, have you done any preliminary work or had any conversations with FEMA about what the impacts of impervious surface that you would add to this area how that would affect the floodplain?
My engineers, IMEG, formerly McClure Engineering, have talked a little bit to them. So that's how they're forming this. They've done quite a few of these over the years. Similar type of situations. So they tell me that it's not uncommon. What happened in 1997, somebody in Washington, probably on a new CAD system, it's probably this lot's kind of near a creek, so we better change the flood elevation and raise it for insurance rate purposes. It's an insurance situation. But I've been there over 20 years now, and when it heavy rains, it doesn't even puddle a lot. It's very good drainage. There actually is an old that Frank DeMarie put in years ago, a little manhole, if you will, with a little underground pipe, but it doesn't go all the way to the street. I believe that what I've been told, and we've given the preliminary engineering to the staff, to engineering staff, and also to their outside engineer from Gaywell Hamilton, and we've answered their questions on it with our latest round, which you see there. Basically, that site plan and the engineering on it with the outlet detention structure and the small subdrain, and they think it should do the trick.
So did that include impact or preliminary impacts in terms of runoff water to adjacent properties as well?
Well, with the drain that we're putting in there, the idea is to keep the water on the property and drain it down maybe a couple feet deep. And there'll be a manhole in the lowest part of the property, which will be lot 4 in the back part. And then the water would just run underground to a small detention structure on Everett Road, or just before Everett Road, before the Parkway. And then it would be held there, and then it would go slowly underneath and be connected to the big storm main on the north side along Everett. So I don't think that'll be an issue. The lot to the west, as Kathy's alluded to, is basically in a floodway. So this would be like a spit in the ocean. If there is anything runoff, it wouldn't be much because most of the situation is to the west.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a deal?
Go ahead.
So I have a question for staff. So if I understand correctly, the current size of the lot, if properly zoned, would be zoned R4, based on as a 80-some thousand square foot lot, meaning one lot. If it gets rezoned to R3, that would allow 2 lots, and R2 then makes it 4 lots. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I was understanding the evaluation on the number of homes.
Kathy, is R3, that's,
R3 minimum lot size is 40,000
40,
square feet,
yeah, half
just
acre.
shy of the 43,
yes,
Okay.
560.
560, thank you.
43,560, yeah.
And just to follow up that last question from Commissioner Pasquizzi, it's currently R5, right? And so only one house can be built on this lot. If nothing were to be done, one house would be built here, correct?
Correct, under R5 or R4.
Yeah.
Right. Commissioner Moorhead, I'll keep going to the outside.
For the petitioner, have you looked at the the judgment order that, I think it's from 1973, to see if you can subdivide to less than 2 acres?
No, I have not.
Okay. And then, can you speak to how your plan, your proposal would conform to the current comprehensive plan?
Well, I'm not sure it's going to conform to the comprehensive plan. That's why I'm asking for a zone change. But I do believe it's like with like, it's still basically residential housing of a fairly substantial value. So I don't think it would be tremendously inconsistent with the comprehensive plan. I believe Kathy said that you are in the process of possibly revisiting the comprehensive plan, and I don't know how long that'll take, but I would like some considerations, when you guys do that, to look at these types of situations, because again, this lot is a little different, as Kathy alluded to. It's rather unique in some ways, and I think it certainly could be rezoned and subdivided without any real problem impact on the neighboring community, et cetera. In fact, I would think that given the demand and the demographics now, I would think that if there was some new construction there, and I'm very confident it would sell very quickly if I build it well, and I plan to do that, that it would actually help all of the surrounding resale values in the neighborhood. No doubt about it. Even the bigger homes will benefit from this. Because there'll be some new blood, $1 to $1.4 million. The ones up on Country Place, et cetera, are very big homes. But a lot of those, again, are not even in the pre-2007 levels. So I would say that there would be a lot of people who actually would like to see some of this happen on the west side. A little bit more density won't hurt. I don't think it's going to have much impact on traffic because it is a tucked-in lane and it's a niche. I've seen some on Ridge Road that were done where they took some bigger estates and went and they cut them down. And they were kind of little lanes off of Ridge, and they've been very successful, it seems to me. So that's kind of my idea.
Okay, that's all I had.
Thank you. No questions at this time.
Thank you.
I just have a question for staff too. The properties to the south at 640 and 620 Old Elm, those are also in the floodplain, is that correct? Or would be, or maybe
don't know
just a
from
more
the-
general question, are there flooding issues down in, or have been in the past along Old Elm Road there, certainly as it gets to Everett, that you're aware of?
There's certainly in very heavy flood events, some properties near drainage channels, near this drainage channel, are impacted. I can't speak specifically to any of those properties. I do note the 2 properties you mentioned are reflected on the floodplain map that's in here, so yes, they are impacted. I do know I do recall receiving some calls about flooding on the properties east of Old Elm Road as it curves around to meet Everett. I don't know, I don't recall receiving any complaints. I wouldn't necessarily have heard those directly. But the properties are in a floodplain which requires the involvement of FEMA and requires either a relook at the properties, relook at the base flood elevations, a map amendment, or some compensatory storage, which is envisioned in this instance, that there would be a dry basin in the rear yards of these homes along the west side of the property in question.
Okay, thank you. Is there any public testimony here this evening on this issue? Would those that would like to speak please come forward to the podium?
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. And as you're coming forward, please state your name and your address for the record here.
Yes, I'm Scott Kaminsky, and this is my wife Jody. We own property at 615 West Everett Road.
Thank you, welcome.
And I just kind of wanted to, thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to speak against or in opposition to this proposal. And I kind of wrote out a thing, so I would just like to read it and have you guys hear it. My wife and I purchased our home at 615 West Everett Road in Lake Forest in September 2021. We fell in love with the privacy and serenity of the lot, the beauty and the open field of the neighborhood, the tall established oak trees, the wildlife, and the in-law home located at the back of the property. While we knew we would have to make a significant investment of time, money, and energy to develop the home into a home that we will love as much as the lot, we decided that the location would be worth the effort. Prior to purchasing our home, we did our due diligence and found out quickly that the lot next door had a separate PIN number and heard through the grapevine that the lot was likely to be developed in the very near future. We then determined that our home and the vacant parcel next to our property were zoned R5. We also discovered that districts in all 4 directions surrounding our home were zoned either R5, R4, or open area public land. Knowing Lake Forest to be an area where land use and planning matters and seeing absolutely no exceptions to the zoning regulations in the area, we moved forward with our purchase. We fully expected the footprint of one single-family home to likely be placed side by side to our home looking out onto West Everett Road in the near future. This was not a concern for us. The lot is zoned R5 and the owner of the lot has every right to place a single-family home there. We ourselves will likely be before the city at some point to seek approval to develop our home. When we opened our mail last Thursday, we learned that a zone change and subdivision approval have been requested for the vacant R5 lot located next to our R5 lot. The plan we received showed 4 homes on 20,000 square foot minimum lots, facing sideways, directly looking into our yard from almost the beginning of our frontage on West Everett to almost the very edge of the back of our yard. Instead of the footprint of one home being developed next door, if zoning regulations were not in place to protect us, we would have the frontage of 4 homes being developed next to our home in an R5 district. This would in effect immediately negate all the reasons that we had purchased our home. Playing with our dogs in our yard, gardening on a weekend, sitting outside by a fire would all be done with 4 homes directly facing the side of our home. The privacy, serenity, beauty, and openness that drew us to the lot would all be gone. In fact, our R5 home would be surrounded by 7 homes, with 4 of those homes directly looking into our lot. We are unable to find any examples of homes in Lake Forest or in the surrounding communities where a zoning exception is permitted to allow 7 homes to our surrounding 1 home, with 4 of the homes directly facing that home. This simply doesn't seem to be allowed no matter how an area is zoned. If an example like this exists, it probably shouldn't, in our opinion. Our immediate area would consist of 5 homes zoned R5 sitting on large lots facing the street, 1 island of 4 homes sitting sideways on an R5 lot, and then another home zoned R5 facing the street. If this change were to move forward, this area, which serves as a gateway to many neighborhoods, would be irreversibly altered. Many people in the area walk dogs, ride bikes, and jog along West Everett. While a decision will most likely impact the 2 adjoining homes, one of which is our home. This is not a request that takes place on an isolated street, but rather on a distinctive gateway to multiple neighborhoods. This decision may lead to other people seeking zoning changes in the area, possibly including us, thus potentially adding many homes to an area that is only zoned for 1 additional home. Thank you for listening to my perspective, and my wife would also like to speak.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Jody Kaminsky, and as my husband was saying, this was a little bit unexpected, and I am new to this, so I am in no way an expert, so I may not get this correct, but I did want to speak to a couple of things. In my mind, before I begin speaking, I think that what I think of with this area, and I know that there are some, apparently some unusual exceptions, but basically the feeling that you get in this area when you drive there, through there or walk through there, it has more of a rural feeling, and in our packet we included sort of some pictures to give you a feel of what that area looks like. I think when people choose to purchase a home in an R5 or an R4 area, they're maybe drawn to different things than if you purchase a home in an R2 area. And somebody purchasing a home in an R2 area might be looking more for, kids playing in the neighborhood and a little bit smaller yards and slightly closer proximity. And somebody purchasing in an area with R5 homes might be looking more for that privacy and that serenity. And so if you take, in essence, an R2 district and put it right next to a home where people purchased expecting that it was R4 or 5, while I understand the need to develop, you really have to consider those people in those areas that made that decision. They did not purchase in an R2 area, they purchased in an R4 or R5 area. What we saw when we purchased here was that we had a buffer of R4 homes. We had open area, and there was a feel that made sense. I'm going to talk a little briefly about the law, and I will probably not get something right, so forgive me if I don't. But basically, what I discovered is that in the city codes 159.044, there are a number of amendments that seem to show that that it's reasonable to expect that we look at an area and see what that area is like in deciding if something can change. That you look at what trends are happening, so that if, lo and behold, R2 areas were popping up in this community within R4, R5, you might say, oh, we're moving in that direction. If there is a bigger picture where we want to start taking the area, connecting the area that's R2, and anytime there's a home available that's a bigger lot, putting in more homes or higher density homes in that area, then if that's part of a plan, that's part of a plan. But I still think in this particular situation, I actually don't think that is a plan, and I would be interested from the board at some point to find out if there is a plan to do that. If there's not a plan, we don't feel that it fits that would happen here, that there would be an exception made here. So as far as the trend, we don't see a trend in the area, and we do think it's reasonable to expect that it was zoned that way, we purchased a home that way, and it should stay that way. Let me see my other points, hold on. 159.044, 2E, talks about whether or not it's for the public health, safety, or general welfare of the community, and I don't see that this promotes the public health or safety or general welfare of the community in such a way that it would allow that change to occur. And then also the last little bit talks about hold on. Alrighty. The Plan Commission shall not recommend the adoption of a proposed amendment unless it finds that the adoption of such amendment is in the public interest and is not solely for the interest of the petitioner. I will say that a number of people, not a number, 3 people approached us in our home. And I realized, well, we initially were a little shocked and thought it was only our issue. 3 people in the neighborhood approached us, and then we went out and walked our dog and talked to people and pulled over the car one day on the way home from Ace Hardware and talked to people. And it's very clear that people in that area are very invested in that feeling. I'll let, if this should go forward, I'll find out from you guys what I would need to do to get people in the area that maybe wouldn't be notified by mail to be able to sign or have a say. So I don't want to say hearsay or anything, but I will say that people had very strong opinions. We talked to a total of 17 people. 2 people, said, I'll look into it. And the other 15 people had very strong opinions. 3 or 4 of them had stronger opinions than we have, based on, I moved from East Lake Forest to West Lake Forest to be in the open area. Oh no, more houses. People walk their dog on that road. There's concerns about safety because everybody walks there. There's not enough sidewalks. So I won't go into any more, but just to say that there's a logic that should apply, and I think that's why Lake Forest looks the way it does and feels the way it does. And to have single-family home facing forward, single-family home, single-family home, single-family home, 4 homes turned sideways facing into our lot, and then another single-family home facing forward, doesn't make sense. Immediately takes away that feeling from that area. And personally, I don't feel that it should be allowed. And I hope you'll read what we wrote in there. And thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, both of you, Mr. and Mrs. Kaminsky, for coming forward.
Thank you.
Just point of clarifications, nothing's being decided here this evening. This is just a preliminary matter for input here. So no decision, formal decision is being made here
Okay.
this evening, just to let you know.
Is there a timeframe on when a decision would be made, or?
The matter would come back before, if a formal decision were to be made, another proposal would come back, a more formal proposal with more studies would come back before the Planning Commission, but I think a lot of it is going to be dependent on what the direction that the Planning Commission gives here this evening. So more to come, and if there are any questions, you can certainly follow up with the city and city staff and get more information.
Okay, that will work. All right.
Thank you
very
both.
much.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public here this evening that would like to speak in regards to this matter? Just for the record, there were a number of letters that the commissioners received here this evening. That'll be part of the record.
Thank you. You have another.
One more.
Yep.
Thank you. Please come forward. Please state your name and give your address.
My name's Cynthia Pasolino. I'm Joe's wife at 631 Everett.
Thank you.
I would just like to add that we bought the property 20 years ago, 22 years ago maybe now, at a time where 615 Everett was for sale for $1,300,000. We did what we could do to improve that area and built a beautiful 8,000 square foot home that has a significant value. 615 Everett has a new fair market value of $535,000. The lot that we're talking about developing sits between that value of $535,000 and then the farmhouse in the floodway and floodplain, which also has about a $500,000 value. So I just ask you from a builder's standpoint, if the lot remained at 2 acres, how could a builder, justify building, a home of the square footage allowed on that property, or any home at the cost of construction today, and make any kind of profit? I would also add that the 615 Everett home, since the time that we built our home, has a little renovated 900 square foot garage in the backyard of it, which looks at our house, that has been a rental property. So we now sit between 2 rental properties. 615 has the 900 square foot rental garage for $1,200, and 691, because it's in floodplain and can't be sold, is a rental property that for the last 8 years has rented for $3,000. So it seems to me justifiable to develop the land that Joe's talking about developing and spending a lot of money to do to improve the area. That's all.
Thank you. Any other public testimony? Anybody else would like to come forward? Are there any other final questions from any of the commissioners back to either the petitioner or staff?
Just, what are you looking from us tonight, Kathy?
Really direction, so that the developer knows whether to continue down the path of the necessary due diligence expenditures to do final engineering, or whether he should be exploring some other options.
Okay. I'll just turn it back to the petitioner. Any opportunity for rebuttal? I'd remind you that we've covered a lot of ground, and but you certainly have the opportunity to rebut.
A couple of things. I appreciate it. Everybody, welcome. Nice to meet you. We haven't had the opportunity. It's a heck of a way to do it, but nevertheless, it's interesting. Couple of things. First of all, I didn't have time to allude, but I just want to bring one thing up. The tax base, the property taxes will go up tremendously if this is approved. I mean, I have 2 lots in Lake Forest Heights, which are assessed at about $250,000. The lot that Armand now is only assessed at a cash value of $270,000, very similar. So I figure that if this is approved, the lots alone will be probably $350,000 based upon an extrapolation of a 1/3 acre versus a 1/2 acre. So basically, this lot, which is now generating probably $5,000 a year in taxes, will probably, without building on it, would probably be about 5 times that at least. Plus, if built on, that would be exponential. The other thing I want to point out, and I forgot to tell you, or you guys probably know, but I would have to incur, in addition to my remediation with FEMA, I have to incur an immediate almost $22,000 per lot for a city impact fee. And then again, when a building permit is issued, another $20,000 per lot. So that's $42,000 at this point per lot, which basically translates to another $170,000 to the city. I also would like to just answer the Kaminskis for a minute, because when we bought the lot and built on that big house, we could have built a 10,000-foot house on that lot. We built an 8,000-foot house, but nevertheless a big house with 2 two-car garages, etc. We bought that with the understanding that that was a tear down. The realtors in town that were saying, yes, it's a tear down property. They're trying to get $1.5 million to start with and end up selling for $555,000, I believe. Petition is paid for, or the new neighbors paid for it. I got a question for you. I know there's a bulk ordinance in Lake Forest which limits the size you can build. Like on a 2-acre lot, it's 8,700 feet. Okay, is there a minimum that you have to have on a lot of that size? Because we're dealing in a situation here, and you can answer the question, but what I'm trying to say is that the houses that I'm proposing to build will be about double the size of their house. It'll actually increase their property values tremendously, probably put in their pocket double day one. They don't realize that, but if you start doing the numbers, it will tremendously help them. In addition, the front houses of the front will face, yes, east, but their house, only the garage faces east. Their front faces the north, will not be affected. The backyard faces the back, does not be affected. So they're still going to be able to play with their dog and have barbecues, and nobody's going to be really seeing them, because most of the people will be in their backyards doing the same thing, which is to the west, and they'll never see them. So I don't think that's really should be a consideration. And as far as the feeling is concerned, we are going to keep the same country ambiance, whether we have 2 lots there or 4 lots or 1, okay? It's not going to change it. 3 more houses versus than what would be allowed now is not going to change that ambiance at all, because it's not like Lake Forest Heights where you have, 6 or 7 streets, 2 blocks long with R2 zoning. It's a whole different kind of a unique place. And we're going to try to, because listen, I want to keep it more than I have a bigger investment than they have. So I'm not looking to cut my nose and spite my face, right? but I think that it's going to actually tremendously help everybody's resale value in that west side. If there's some new construction in reasonably sized houses on reasonably sized properties. 2,000 foot or 2,200 feet, I believe your house is, on a 2-acre property is not consistent with the zoning patterns in the west side.
But I have a question. So just so I understand it correctly, though, you're proposing 4 lots. So you're proposing to build about 15,000 square foot of home on a 2-acre?
I would say probably more like about, 13, 14,000, something like that.
Right, give or take, right? You have 8,000 square
It's
feet.
2-acre now, but it would be half acres, right?
So just so we understand and we're clear on the magnitude of the amount of proposal fully built out
But-
that happens to the density of this 2-acre lot.
I also have some pictures, but I was saying along that driveway that I have, I'm not going to touch the east side. I put in big 20-foot pear trees 20 years ago, and now they're about 30, 35 feet as a screen along that driveway to the house to the east. We also have a lot of yews that run along there, a whole hedge of yews running there. It's very quite private and separated. I did that obviously for some privacy and kind of delineate the two areas. So I don't think it's going to lose any of its flavor in that regard of the country look. So that's what I hope not to happen. So, and I thank you for
Mr.
listening.
Basilino. Thank you very much. Anything else from staff?
Nothing.
Okay, the testimony and the comment period is now closed. For discussion purposes, that's where we are in the meeting. I'll maybe turn to Commissioner Lamontagne to start it off.
I can tell you based on, and we don't have all of the facts in front of us, but from what I can see, and for the comments period for tonight, with everything that I have in front of me, I would not support the zone change. My sense is that, you know, we're trying to shoehorn in 4 lots and, you know, into something that just doesn't fit with the overall aspect of this neighborhood. Now, had the petitioner come forward after maybe they had purchased lot 615 Everett and proposed a full redevelopment that was contiguous with the lots to the east, maybe that would have a bit of a different consideration. But I do think we need to think about the lots to the east and west that exist today. My sense is that there's also a lot of work to be done. I appreciate the preliminary work being done on the floodplain, but I think this is a lot of square footage getting put on a lot that has floodplain issues, has an overall country feel, and I just think that it's a stretch from my perspective.
Commissioner Pasquale?
Yeah, I'll start by saying I agree with the petitioner on everything that he referenced in terms of the real estate market, how active it is, the values that were discussed, and even the demand for this kind of product. That being said, I feel that this proposal is wholly inconsistent with the immediate surrounding area, and would be hugely impactful to the immediate neighbors in a negative way. And so, you know, I struggle even with the way the homes are laid out, facing directly into the neighboring property. I think this is a difficult one to move forward, and so I would echo everything that Commissioner Lamontagne said as well. So,
thank you. I'll go next, and we'll keep going around. But I certainly appreciate the petitioner and their time, and certainly coming forward with the idea of trying to add to the community in other ways in terms of additional provisions of housing and tax base, and that's certainly not lost. But I think I would also agree with the comments that have so far been made, and I would not be in favor of the requested change from the current R5 zoning on the subject parcel to the R2 zoning. And I just would add, you know, sort of the following comments there's a long history with this area, and it dates back to the early 70s, 1973, in the city of Lake Forest condemning the southern part of this parcel to make way for Old Elm Road. I don't know all the facts. Commissioner Moorhead alluded to it earlier. I don't think he knows all the facts, but more importantly, that's not necessarily before us, but a lot of thought went into that, into the condemnation of this area. Decisions were made intentionally, some of which I can only imagine, but certainly decisions were made to make 5 lots of no less than 2 acres, and these are legal non-conforming lots currently now at the R5, but that decision was made consciously. So that's my first point. My second point is this is on a floodplain. And certainly FEMA approval, as the petitioner stated, would need to happen here. And even if you go forward with the FEMA approval, I know, and was trying to ask the question, I have a vivid memory, and it probably was around 20 years ago, coming up then the Old Elm Road towards Everett, and it being underwater there. And large portions of property being underwater after a heavy rainfall. So I could only imagine what adding more density there would mean to the properties to the south, certainly properties to the east, with taking up more impervious surface there. And then the last point I would make is, if the Comiskey's, who are in the lot 615, got so frustrated by this whole matter, if we were to proceed with the subdivision of this, there would be nothing then that would prohibit them from wanting to come forward to the city and ask for a subdivision of their parcel. So if, and that's a huge if, because it doesn't look like it's going in that direction, but if we were to allow it for the petitioner's parcel, certainly there would then be nothing to prevent us from allowing it for the Comiskey's property. And so then you're going to talk about, and we didn't really talk about this too much, but then you're talking about 8 additional homes in there, which makes 0 sense. 4 makes no sense, 8 makes no sense. If we can't do, or if we did for 1, there shouldn't be anything that would prohibit us from doing it to the property owner at 615 to the east. So for those reasons, I would not be in favor.
I agree. I'm not in favor of it either. I wouldn't be inclined to be in favor of it for all the reasons previously stated. I'll add, in addition to what the other commissioners said, the first issue, I think, is I think it's the 1973 judgment order. You have to look at that to see if this is even allowed, because my understanding, based on staff report, is that it's supposed to be not less than 2 acres. So that would take the matter out of city purview and put it in the courts. So it might preclude this whole discussion. It also doesn't, the proposal doesn't satisfy the rezoning section 159.044 for the reasons stated in the staff report. I don't need to go through them all, but I agree with those. It also doesn't appear to comply with the comprehensive plan, calling for a state residential of lot sizes of not less than 1.5 acres. The petitioner referenced the value of property, of the properties and the enhancement to the tax revenues and so on and so forth, but I don't believe that's a criteria for rezoning. So while it might be accurate, it might not be relevant. And I hedge that because I'm not exactly sure. And I agree with the staff report that if we were to allow this, it would create a pattern of mixed zoning. It would have a jarring effect in the neighborhood, which isn't appropriate for this area. And we have similar examples in the city. Heather Lane on Illinois Road. I live on Illinois Road. Heather Lane, if you look at that, it's very similar to what is being proposed here, and it has a negative effect on the neighborhood. So for all those reasons, I would not be inclined to support it.
I don't need to take up a lot of airtime here. I mean, you're referencing, Jamie, you're referencing the rezoning issues and comprehensive plan issues, and obviously, I very much appreciate the idea, but it seems like you're asking us to prevent, or at least give you some guidance on not going down a road that might be costly for you, to then maybe potentially lead to an outcome that's not favorable. And we've seen that, I think, in the past. We want to prevent that type of thing from happening. So I'm kind of here to second what all of my fellow commission members have already articulated. I would not necessarily be in favor of this either. So
Thank you, Commissioner Davies. So I think that's the indication pretty clearly, I think, from the board here this evening. Hopefully that helps the petitioner. And I think that, is there anything else to add to this matter, Ms. Cerniak?
No, I think that was pretty clear.
Okay. Other items, opportunity to address the Plan Commission on any other items that are not before us this evening or on the agenda. Anybody in the public? Anything else from staff? Any other announcements or business matters?
As I mentioned, we do have at least one item for the April Plan Commission meeting, and we plan to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Good to be back in person.
Yeah. How about it?
It's been a long time.